Hello everyone, so it's Sirman here. I figured I may as well just do a new sort of video where I basically go over the Billboard Hot 100, the Billboard Hot Dance year-end list for 2022. Given that AOD is a prominent part of my channel, I figured this would be necessary, and yeah, let's just say this is a very interesting list, to say the least. But I'm not just going to just look over the year-end list itself. I'm actually going to use it alongside my main predictions playlist that I have on my Spotify. I'll put a link to that down in the description, but it will be updated to match the year-end list, but it contains every single song that charted in order from its chart run, just like the 2015 video I just made. I will basically be comparing the two and seeing how well I did with the predictions and just discuss the songs themselves. So if you see on our first list, we have here Cold Heart P&A remix by Elton John and Dua Lipa. This was number one on both of the lists. I'm fairly sure this was obvious to everyone. This song was on the chart for the entire year, hit number one, and was by far the biggest song of the bunch. What's interesting is Break My Soul at number two by Beyonce. It's the only one of this list that's actually hit number one as we're recording this, although further down there are some possible challenges for that. But this song just didn't really last that long on the Hot 100, hence why it's only at number two and not at number one, and also the fact that it didn't really last the whole year like Cold Heart P&A remix did. We have Peppers by Faruko, again, both playlists, it's number three, and yeah, this one was pretty obvious too. It was a case of being caught between years on the Hot 100, but it stuck around a long time on the dance charts, all the way up until the Drake album bomb week. Same deal with The Motto by Tiesto and Ava Max at 4. Again, this debuted on the first week of the Billboard year, so it was going to rank high, and it was also a pretty considerable hit on the Hot 100. Numb by Marshmello and Khalid. I was really surprised that this was right, because obviously this was a bit of a later charting song and it didn't become as huge as some of the other ones below it. But yeah, no, it's top 5 of this year-end list, not complaining, and yeah, it did have a pretty decent run on the Hot 100. This next one's interesting. Do It To It by Acraze and Cherish. Okay, obviously, as you can see, it was number 8 on my predictions. That was mainly just due to the fact that it wasn't a really huge hit on the dance charts. It only peaked at like 65, well, on the Hot 100, sorry. It only peaked at 65 on the Hot 100, didn't last too long there. But I guess just the long run it had on the dance charts up until Drake's album bomb week gave it enough points to hit the top 10, almost hit the top 5. What's interesting is I'm Good Blue. I mean, obviously we all are expecting this to be number one for 2023. Fucking wonderful. But yeah, I thought it would be at least number 6, considering it's been at number 1 for a while now. But I guess just the late debut did kind of, affect how it was going to land on the year-end list. But obviously this is going to do a lot better in 2022. Oh wait, 2023, sorry. We have Hold Me Closer by Elton John and Britney Spears. If you look at my predictions, I had this all the way down at 14. Yeah, admittedly, this one I probably was a little bit too, not generous enough with it. Mainly, it was just the late debut, plus the fact that it wasn't really sticking at number 1. That's the main reason I put it down that low. But I shouldn't have been surprised. It debuted the same week as I'm Good Blue, so yeah. Expect this to do a lot better in 2023, unfortunately. We have here When I'm Gone by Alesso and Katy Perry as well. This one really surprised me. I thought this would have been out of the top 10 for the year-end list, considering on the Hot 100 it barely did anything. It only had a traditional 26-week run, but it also did last in the top 5 for a very long time, so I probably shouldn't be that surprised by it. Moth to a Flame. Moth to a Flame. I'm surprised that this is top 10. I mean, I shouldn't be. It's on my predictions at number 9. But I'm surprised that Billboard were actually really close to agreeing with this one. This song didn't feel like it was a long presence on the charts, and especially getting cut off midway through its run in 2021. Well, the strongest part of its run in 2021. You'd think it would have been a little bit skewed because of that, but no, it ends up making the top 10, which, I mean, it's good. It's a great song, but, you know. Next ones we have, oh boy. Yeah, this was kind of interesting. I did not expect Drake would not get a single top 10 song, especially Massive, considering Massive was in the top 10 for a long time. It got it was a pretty high peak, like considerably higher than When I'm Gone. But I guess it was just the fact that it debuted, it only had 20 weeks instead of 26 weeks. That might be the reason why it's only at number 11. I thought it would have been top 10, but hey, it's the highest of the Drake songs, so I can't really complain. BZ Music Sessions 52 by BZ and Quevedo. I put this at 10, wasn't really surprised by that. This one was considerable, like it had a pretty decent presence on the Hot 100 for a song of this kind, but it just was a bit too late to really hit the top 10. I can see this possibly hitting the top 10 for this year, if it sticks around long enough. El Incomprendido, this one really, I expected this would be way lower. I have this at 20. This one was interesting because El Incomprendido is a song that didn't even hit the bubbling under, and only lasted up until the Drake album bomb again, which was about 25 weeks or so. Really surprised that this didn't, this was as high as it was. We'll say that. And especially above Where Are You Now? I mean, they both exited at the same time, but Where Are You Now was considerably stronger for a lot of its later period run. I had this actually at 13, so I'm not exactly upset that it didn't, like, it was actually not far off, all things considered. But yeah, Where Are You Now was one of those really strong ones that didn't do anything on the Hot 100. Kind of unfortunate. We have Falling Back by Drake. I have this exactly at 15. This was a very predictable one. This basically was the song from Honestly Nevermind that hit number 1 and really didn't really go anywhere afterwards. It's the worst performing number 1 on this on the dance charts. It beat the Harlem Shake just recently, and yeah, it was going to make the top 20 just on the fact that it did chart in the top 10 of the Hot 100, but it just didn't really last. We have Don't You Worry. Again, this was very not surprising considering it debuted the same week as the Drake album bomb and had way more staying power than a lot of the Drake songs. It's still, unfortunately, charting, and I don't want to rule out the possibility of this repeating in 2023. It's not good. Texaco Green and A Keeper, these were very easy to predict. Texaco Green was one of the highest charting songs on the week of the album bomb. It was the number 2. And A Keeper seems to be the one that's had some more staying power. Both of these being near the top of the Drake songs doesn't really surprise me. What does surprise me, though, is Calling My Name. Why is this here? This one fell really hard, and I had it at 24, but it somehow was in the top 20, even though it didn't last on the Hot 100. It fell below a lot of the lower charting songs from the album, and yeah, it didn't really have a different run either. Yeah, kind of weird. I thought this would have been a lot lower, but whatever. We have Don't Forget My Love. I had this one way lower than this did way better than I expected. I had this near the bottom of the top 30, but it made the top 20. Shouldn't be surprised by that considering it was a very strong run up until the Drake album bomb came along. And hell, the Drake album bomb didn't really kill it. It took a while to really die off, so yeah. I mean, hey, Diplo getting a top 20 on the year-end list from a fantastic album doesn't really surprise me, and I'm not really complaining about it. Moving on from there, we have Nazareno at 20... oh, God. Sorry, this... Come on. Moving on, we have Nazareno by Farruko at 21. Again, this was another one I thought would do a lot worse than what I actually did. I have it at 30. And this one was interesting because this one didn't even hit the top 5. It did last a long time past the Drake album bomb, so it probably just got a lot of skew points because one of the things I noticed with this year-end list is that they heavily favored the stuff that charted after the Drake album bomb and even after the Beyonce album bomb. I guess the points were a bit more skewed upwards, just because, you know, there were more songs on the Hot 100 and it was a much stronger album bomb, probably the strongest album bomb in the history of the dance charts. Case in point, Currents at number 22. This one didn't really surprise me. I expected it would be a little bit lower, but again, it was more just down to the fact that it didn't really last in the top 25 very long. Yeah, it's pretty decent place-wise. But this one, Flights Booked, I was surprised that this didn't do better, considering this song has been sticking around way higher than a lot of the other Drake songs on average. I mean, I'm not complaining that it's here, it's a really good song, but yeah, I thought it would do a lot better. This one really surprised me, like, Murder on My Mind by Court Hell. I had this, at 40, mainly because it was a later period run. I think, again, this is the whole thing with the skewed points from the Drake album bomb impact. This song charted long after the Drake album impact, and yeah, you can tell that they really were favoring this one to do well. Peaked in the top 10 well after it as well. Yeah. Very good song too. I'm glad it's done as well as it has. These next ones are mostly the Beyonce tracks. I'll just get these out of the way now because I had these pretty high. I had Thick as the highest, and again, lines up perfectly. Had Summer Renaissance afterwards, and then had Pure/Honey at the second, well, at the lowest. Wow, I'm actually looking. These are all 3 points off. That's really convenient, actually. But yeah, the Beyonce album bomb is still around. I don't know if any of these are going to repeat because they did gain a fair bit on the dance charts this week. I don't think they're going to, but it's still interesting that they're still charting regardless. Tell It To My Heart by Medusa and Hosier. This one was really close to mine. It was 28th on mine versus 27th here. Not really surprising. It had a few weeks in the top 10. Lasted 26 weeks. Only got cut off, I'm fairly sure, 1 week from, charted in the last week of 2021. Not complaining at all. This is a great song. Dancing Feet by Kygo and DNCE. Again, I'm not surprised. Where the fuck is it? Oops, pressed the wrong one. Dancing Feet, I had pretty high. Wait, where the hell is it? Sorry, I'm all over the place this video. Dancing Feet. Huh. I don't know where that's gone, but... Oh, yeah. Okay, found it. So Dancing Feet, for some reason, I had a 12. This is one of the ones I would probably change in retrospect. Mainly because it didn't really last that long in the top 10. It did have a few, like 1 or 2 weeks in the bubbling under, which I think was part of the reason why I put it as high as it did, but yeah, it just didn't really last. 20 weeks for a top 5 hit is kind of bad. But yeah. Again, we're talking about Pure/Honey. I Feel Good by Pitbull. Yeah, this one wasn't really surprising. I had it at 37. Did way better than I expected, especially for Pitbull in 2022. And he's got, this isn't the last time you'll see him on this list, just fair warning. But, yeah, top 30 doesn't really surprise me there. Let me move this down. Oh, God. Next up, we have SG, fucking DJ Snake, Azuna, Lisa, and Megan Thee Stallion. I had this at the exact same spot. I knew this wasn't going to be in the top 30, mainly because it only had like 2 weeks in the top 10, and got cut off, its strongest period got cut off from 2021, even though it made the year-end list last year. Not a good song. I'm glad it did make the top 30, but yeah. We also have Escape by Cascade, Deadmau5, and Hayla. I put this in the same spot too. This would have been easily in the top 10 had Drake not come along. This was a monumental run for both artists. This is by far Cascade's biggest song on the dance charts, and it also is Deadmau5's highest charting song, and by far his biggest. Tied with Let Go, which didn't really last, but yeah, this is their highest spot on the year-end list, so congratulations to both of them, and yeah, it's an excellent song. I'm glad it did as well as it did. Frozen by Madonna and Sickick doesn't really surprise me that it's this high. I thought it would have been a little bit higher considering it was a top 10 hit, but yeah, it just didn't really, like, it's weird that this only lasted like I thought this would have been a lot longer run than what it had, but it had a standard 26-week run, and yeah, it's a very good song. I'm very, well, no. I'm thinking of something else. Yeah, this one wasn't good. Probably will be one of the worst performing ones on the rankings of this year-end list. Yeah. We have Words by Lesso and Zara Larsson. I had this at day 5. It was day 4. Pretty close, all things considered. I didn't expect this would be a massive contender, considering it didn't even last 26 weeks, but it did have a few weeks in the top 10. So, yeah, it was going to do well there. Don't Be Shy by Tiesto and Karol G. I had this way lower than what it has on the year-end list. I had this at 44, mainly because it had a fair bit of its run cut off from 2021. It's a repeat, obviously, from that year. And, I mean, I'm not surprised it did. It was this high. It was in the top 10 for a while, but, yeah. Rave by Dark. I'm not surprised that this was as high as it was. I probably put it a bit too high in retrospect, considering it beat out a lot of Beyonce tracks on my list. But yeah, this is a great song. I'm honestly surprised that Murder in My Mind beat it, considering this was a top 10 hit as well, and it hit 26 weeks while Murder in My Mind hasn't even hit 20 for the Billboard year. But yeah, no, shouldn't be surprised with this placement. In the Ghetto, again, it's a repeat from last year. I didn't have this very high at all, I don't think. Yeah, I had this just below the top 50, which, I mean, it should have been a bit easier to predict that this would have been in the top 40, considering it did chart on Hot 100 just before the cutoff for 2021. And, yeah, not surprised it came back. Love Brand New. This one really surprised me. I thought this would do a lot worse on the year-end list, but actually, well, in my mind, with the predictions, I was basing them just on chart runs. And also just personal preferences where they wanted to go. But I didn't expect Love Brand New would actually stick in the top 40. Like, for Bob Moses, that is a really good push for them. And it sucks that they haven't really been able to follow it up just yet. But, hey, it's a good song. Deserved all of the success it got. And the fact that it lasted during the Drake album was probably part of the reason why I put it as high as it did. Ferrari by James Hype right next to it. Again, doesn't surprise me. 26 weeks with a 13 peak. It was going to do well, especially post-Drake album bomb. And speaking of Drake, Overdrive. Overdrive I had a little bit lower, mainly because it didn't really last that long on the charts compared to a lot of Drake songs. But it should have been... it made sense since it was top 40. It did chart on the Hot 100, so I was going to get points on that. Okay. This next... Oh, God. Now, this next part, I was not really surprised by a lot of it. We have Where'd You Go by Jax Jones and M&EK. I had this pretty modestly high on my predictions at 36. Wasn't really surprised that it didn't do as well. It did get kind of screwed over by the Drake album bomb. It just wasn't going to last to 26 weeks. Even though the run it had was pretty strong regardless, and, you know, top 50 is pretty impressive. Hot in It by Tiesto and Charlie XCX, I think I had this in the 40s. Yeah, I did. 45. Not really surprised. This one benefited from being post-Drake album bomb, and yeah, it had a top 10 debut as well, so it did help there. And it was still charting into 2023 Billboard year, so yeah. Vendetta by Mupp and Sad Friend, much higher than I expected. I mean, I'd put this at 47, it was at 43. And the fact it's still charting nowadays, I think it could actually sneak onto 2023's year-end list, considering it's still in the top 20. And yeah, it's a really good song. I'm glad it did as well as it did. Lost Without You, though, I thought this would be above it, considering it was a top 10 hit and it had a longer chart. Well, I think it only on like 1 week difference between these two. But Lost Without You had a more like wild and messy chart one compared to Vendetta. So I'm not surprised it's lower on this list. What's funny is Make You Say below both of these. I had Make You Say. Where did I? Oh yeah, I had Make You Say at 64. This one was a lot higher than expected. I think just because of the top 10 run it had. And plus post Drake album, it was going to do well. I will say I'm glad that it's probably not going to do as well on the 2023 year end list. It might not even make it at this rate. But yeah, that's probably the first like true miss with my predictions. Tie That Binds, I had in the 50s. Doesn't really surprise me that it made the top 40. Yeah, it's. I mean, it didn't even last past 15 weeks, so I probably under predicted just how well it would do. And also, same case for Downhill, 10-point difference. Again, that one was by far the worst performing one of the album bombs, so I shouldn't be surprised it's the lowest. And yeah, Crazy What Love Can Do. Had this pretty modest, all things considered. I'm surprised it's not higher, considering it was a very strong run. But I think being knocked out by Drake's album bomb kind of just hurt it in the long run. BOTA Baddest of Them All, I had this one, oh god. Let me try and find it here. Yeah, I had BOTA pretty low, 83. I think that was just more because of the skewing from the Drake album, plus the fact they hit the top 10. I probably should have considered that before making it, but yeah. This one, I'm glad is in the top 50. I don't know if it's going to make it in the top 50 this year, but it will make it into the year-end list for sure. And rounding out the top 50, we have All That Really Matters by Illenium and Teddy Swims. This one I had in the 50s range. I'm not too surprised it made it. I'm more surprised it beat Story of My Life, considering that song had a much stronger 20-week run, and this one's only at 13 at the week, like at the end of the Billboard year. But hey, I'm not complaining. It's the best thing he's made this year. This next one's really interesting. This is Stay With Me by Calvin Harris. And the Arsenal collaborators. I thought this would be a bit lower on the year-end list, considering it didn't really stick in the top 10, and it's kind of falling all over the place, its run. But I think the whole thing with Billboard keeping pushing songs that are still charting higher on the year-end list is in effect here. And also a top 10 run after on the same week as a Beyonce album bomb. Yeah, that was going to help this one do well. Story of My Life. I thought this would be a lot stronger than what it was. But this did chart at the beginning of the year before Drake's album bomb hit, so I think it just got a bit negatively affected by that. Miss You by Oliver Tree and Robin Schulz. Expect this to do way better in 2023, and also the other two versions that are charting at the moment are going to make the year-end list. So I mean, hey, you're giving Southstar at least something out of this. So yeah. The Last Goodbye. I thought this would do a lot better. I had this in the top 50, I'm fairly sure. Yeah, no, top 40. Mainly because they had a top 10 peak. Lasted a very long time and survived the Drake album bomb for 1 week. But yeah. Probably shouldn't be surprised it's this low. It sucks that Desert has only got this one as their only year-end list spot. They deserve better. Heaven Takes You Home, again, is another one I ranked highly. I think it's another case of being negatively skewed. It's not really that surprising that it didn't make the top 50, considering it didn't really last in the top 20 that long. But yeah, it's nice to still see this make it, even though later on they did have a few snubs here. You Are My High by DJ Snake. I'm not surprised that this made it pretty high on the year-end list. I had this at 54, so pretty close. This one's really not surprising, considering it rebounded into the top 10 with the Future remix, but just didn't really last that long there. Intimidated by Kay Trinada and Her, I had this pretty high, all things considered. It probably should have been a little bit lower because it didn't really last that long in the top 20. But still, the fact that Kay Trinada's got a year enlisted all is a miracle, so I'm not complaining. 21 Reasons by Nathan Dorr and Ella Henderson. The fact that this is in the top 60 is kind of disappointing to me. I did have this pretty modestly at 65. But again, I think the Drake boost did help it in a way. Same deal with Neon Blade by Moon Deity. This one I thought was going to do way worse than what it did. 78, mainly because it didn't even hit the top 20, but I think just in the fact it was so consistent after the Drake album bomb was what helped it here. Especially being I Love You by the Chainsmokers. Like, that is... The fact that that's their highest year-end list spot is kind of embarrassing. I thought that iPad would do better than it, considering it was more consistent, but I Love You, of course, had the top 5 debut, so it was going to make it here. But the fact that the Chainsmokers' highest year-end spot nowadays is number 60, that's kind of a bad sign. And the fact that none of their songs from So Far So Good even lasted 20 weeks kind of proves that. We have Bizarrap Music Sessions 51. I'm sorry, let me just fix this. We have Bizarrap Music Sessions 51. I had this at 69, of course. And this one's fine. I'm not surprised that it did better. It lasted way longer than I think anyone expected. Surviving both Beyonce and Drake album bombs is gonna get you some high points. Don't Wake You Up. Wait, oh god. Don't Wake Me Up by Jonas Blue and Why Don't We. I'm not surprised that this is a bit lower. Again, it's the Drake impact because this was one of the first... this was actually the highest debut from the first week of the AOD that I did, true fact. But yeah, it's kind of the most forgettable song on this list, arguably up there. It's fine. I don't mind it. I'm not complaining that Family by David Guetta, Baby Rexha, Ty Dolla $ign, The Boogie with the Hoodie. Again, right next to it as well. I think the fact that these two had very similar runs did definitely help with putting them back to back. What surprised me was the fact that What Would You Do was this low. I thought it would do a lot better. I thought it would surprise and do better, but no, it lined pretty well with my predictions there. iPad, sorry, I skipped a lot there. Follow Me by Sam Felt and Rita Ora. This one, oh god, that was a mistake. Follow Me I had in the top 50, just barely. Again, skewed because of Drake. But still, it did a lot better than I think anyone expected, so I'm not really too surprised. Sahara by Henson, again, another case of that. I had this in the 60 range, yeah. Just because it didn't really last that long in the top 20, but still, the fact that it was so consistent is really good, especially for a funk song that early on. Beg For You by Charlie XCX and Rina Sawayama, top 10 hits, and it did get knocked down a little bit from... Beg For You by Charlie XCX and Rina Sawayama. Not surprised that this didn't do as well as I predicted. Mainly just the fact that it did die off because of Drake. Even though it hit the top 10, so I'm not surprised that it's here. iPad at 68, that's bad. I think, in general, the fact that it didn't last 20 weeks really hurt it, even though it did survive Drake's album bomb for a few weeks. Yeah, get out. Yeah, just get the Chainsmokers out of here. Bad Memories. I'm really surprised that this was as high as it was. I think this was a clear case of the Beyonce and Drake impact really helping songs after it. This did way better than I expected, like 92 versus 69 on the year-end list. And the fact that it might actually be a repeat is kind of funny to think about. Especially being Chasing Stars, which was a top 15 chart run. Really surprising. Where did I have this? Yeah, I had this 58, even though, again, Drake. I keep bringing up Drake, but it's true with this. we have Move Your Body by Own Boss and Sevic. This one, oh god. I'm not surprised that this didn't make the top 70, considering it literally just had a very, like, hang on, where did I put it? I'm not surprised because, again, it was before the Drake album bomb, and it just barely survived past 20 weeks because of, like, a few gains. Didn't really have a high peak, but yeah, it still made it really modestly high, which is pretty impressive. Caught Up by Olivia Bryan and Griffin. This one was not surprising that it didn't make the top 70, mainly because while it did have a number 12 peak and it lasted 20 weeks, most of them were in the lower half of the charts. I mean, it's by far the most consistent hit that Griffin had this year, so, you know. We have Belly Dancer by Einbeck and Bure. Pretty close to where I predicted it would be. It just had a pretty standard run by the standards of this chart. 20 weeks, 25 peak. And it did last past the Drake album bomb, so that did definitely help it. What annoys me is that Broken in All the Right Places by Lost Kings and Mod Sun, it was real as close as it was. I wish that this song didn't do as well. It's not good. And, I mean, Lost Kings haven't had a hit in a while, so, I mean, good on them, but it's not a good song. We have Baby Girl by Disco Lines. Again, I shouldn't be surprised by this. Baby Girl is a song that really outperformed all expectations. Like 21 weeks for a song with a 25 peak that survived plus recurrency rules and had the history it did. Yeah, I'm not complaining that's on this year-end list. Afraid to Feel. That is way higher than I expected. Oh, God. Yeah, I had Afraid to Feel in the bottom quarter of the charts, like 90. I think again it was skewed because of the chart run when it was charting was when the dance music was starting to cross over to the Hot 100 again. So I'm not surprised that it's as high on this year-end list as it is, even despite not hitting 20 weeks and peaking at 34. And moving past Love Tonight, which was an obvious repeat. Yeah, same deal with Deep Down. That was the exact same deal with that one. Not surprised that they're basically back-to-back at this point. Yeah, and it will be a really good showcase of the skewing when you get further down this list. Metamorphosis, for example, I was expecting that would be higher than both of these, but somehow it wasn't, even though it's nearly in the top 10 as we speak. But yeah, no, the fact they made it here is also not surprising. It's a really good folk song. Say Nothing by my boy Flume. I'm wearing the shirt right now. Yeah, this one I thought would be pretty reasonably high, and I mean, it was only like not even 10 spots away from where I predicted. Yeah, I'm glad Flume got at least something out of this. Moving down the list, oh god. Yeah, we had some stinkers here. I Wish by Joel Corey and Mabel. I'm not surprised that this did better than a lot of the songs below it. It's one of his weaker performing singles, but it lasted 20 weeks. With a 22 peak, so I was going to do something on this year-end list. I Can Feel It by Sickick. I think this is the first time that, firstly I got it correct, which was really surprising for me. But also the fact that this is so far the only song on the year-end list of any year that's now unavailable to listen to on Spotify for good, or on any streaming platforms. This only lasted 10 weeks, it peaked at 13, but yeah, it was just strong enough when it was available that it was able to do something and make this year-end list. After You Below It, though, was kind of surprising, considering it was way more consistent for a long period of its run. But yeah, I mean, it's not Griffin's biggest and most longevity for this year, but yeah. Alex by Joel Corey, Jax Jones, Charlie XX, and Sweetie. That's not really surprising. It didn't really last that long into the year, but it did peak. Did spend the last part of its run in the top 25, so not too surprised there. We have Summer in New York. I expected this would do better. The fact it was able to survive through the album bombs, plus the fact it lasted 18 weeks is pretty impressive. But yeah. We have we have Down Under by Lude and Colin Hay. This one really doesn't surprise me that it was around this spot. It was before the Drake album bomb, and it didn't even last. It didn't last 20 weeks, but it did have a number 20 peak, so it was going to do something. Wake Up in Love. I thought this would be a lot lower on the... hang on. Oh, no, actually. Yeah, Woke Up in Love, I had an 80, 87. I was surprised considering when it's charting, and the fact it's still charting. Plus, it hit the top 10. But I think it was just a bit late into the year to really impact the year-end list. We have Undeniable. Again, doesn't surprise me. It was more the fact that this didn't do better. I think it was just the fact that the run it had was cut off. So its strongest two debut weeks were cut off from 2021. Completely forgot that the song existed, even though I've listened to The Thrill of the Chase and it's on that album. But yeah, this one was really, really good to see. Turn on the Lights Again. I had this near the bottom of the list, mainly because it was in the risky spots of getting caught between years, I felt. But not only is it still around and indicative of Fred Again's really continued stability with a lot of songs that's still charting this year, but it also is like, I think the fact that this debuted on the week of the Beyonce album bomb definitely helped it, and the fact it's lasted 14 weeks and is pretty stable at the moment is really impressive. And good on Fred Again, he absolutely deserves this. Human by John Summit and Echoes, I had this at 75 actually. Shouldn't be surprised this is low. Again, the skewing does hurt it a lot, and it was only a peak at 26 for 20 weeks. But I'm glad it's here. Shame John Summer hasn't really been able to follow it up, but yeah. And we move on to the final 10. This portion I think is pretty rough. Especially the bottom 6 songs, like Jesus Christ. There's only like one I like, well, 2 I like in here. We have Original Sin by Sophie Tucker. I thought this would do way better, but I think just getting killed off by Drake didn't really help it. Run by Becky Hill and Galantis, same deal. It just didn't really do much. At 89, yeah, it had a pretty standard run for a house song of that kind. Everything But You by Clean Bandit, I had exactly where it was planned. This was surprisingly a really poorly performing single for their standards, but I mean, it's at least it actually made the year-end list, unlike a certain other song, but we'll get to it. You Are Loved by Griffin and One Republic, I had it at the same spot too. I mean, that 11 peak was going to help it, even though it didn't last even 15 weeks. Like, it only lasted 11 weeks. Moving down the list here, we have Riptide by the Chainsmokers. I thought this would be lower than where it was, considering it was pretty much a flop single on release. Only got here because of its top 10 and top 20 charts for like 4 weeks. But yeah, it's a bad song. On My Knees, I thought this would do better, but I think the skewing didn't help this one at all. And also it lost a fair portion of its run to 2021. The fact it made it though is great, and Rivers to Soul deserves this one making it. And 3 songs from Surrender making the year-end list is incredible. Okay. This one is not okay by me. Don't Let Me Let Go by Dylan Francis, Elenium and Evangelia. As you can see, I had this at 133. This should not be on the year-end list at all. I think this is the clear case of skewing just really not making sense. But this song had 1 week at number 15, 1 week at 28, and then the rest of its run was below 40. This should not be on the year-end list. Why is this here? Especially considering the other songs that missed it had more stable runs than this did, and only lasted 11 weeks. Like, really? This is what's making the year-end list? Okay, alright. We have How Do You Love again. Can we just not give cheat codes any more hits? Like, they suck. This song is awful. And yeah, it was going to do bad on this year-end list, considering it barely had any run outside of the 40s. It only had like a few weeks in the top 30, and yeah, it's a fucking horrible song. I'm glad it didn't do very well on the year-end list. This one, again, the skewing, Cafe Con Leche by Pitbull. I mean, this one was a lot less far out of my top 100 than Don't Let Me Let Go was. Yeah, but the fact this made the year-end list is kind of hilarious, and the fact it could actually repeat is even funnier. And rounding out, we have Shinigami Eyes by Grimes. 95, again, it wasn't going to make it very high on the year-end list, considering it. Billboard seems to have a thing for songs that peak at 12 and have 12 weeks, because Something Comforting got robbed of a year-end list spot and had the same sort of run. And yeah, this one was lucky to make it. But if you look further down my predictions here at 99 and 100, here we have some songs that missed it. Actually, I'll scroll down a little bit because I've made this list pretty notable. The big one is How Well I Know by Clean Bandit and Whitney Houston. I'm, again, with a 28 peak, the same run as On My Knees, but peaking way lower, and also before the Drake album bomb, it was going to get shafted. I'm glad it did, though, because it's a terrible cover, but yeah. Well, terrible remix, I'm sorry. What surprised... Well, again, this one was probably a case of just being overpowered by other songs and being caught between years. My Heart Goes La Da by Becky Hill and Topic. This probably would be in the 101 to 105 range. 10 weeks with a 23 peak. It just got caught too hard between year-end lists and got messed around a bit because of Drake's album bomb. Same deal with California Dreaming, but although that one was way more consistent, I think it would have made the year-end list more likely than My Heart Goes at this point, considering 16 weeks with a 32 peak is pretty impressive. Some other ones that I didn't predict would make it anyways. Red Light by Sweet Shots, My Friend Sting, as painful as that is. Jealousy by FK Twigs and Rima. Happy Birthday by Tempo and El Alpha. Scrolling down, we have Man of the Moon, Lock It Up, Power. Although I expected Power, Remember Who You Are would be a lot bigger than what it is. Like, it was a pretty bad flop single. We have, well, obviously, Cat Con Leche, Forget About Me, No Me and 10 Promises, Better Now. These all just didn't really have strong enough chart runs. And the rest below this were just weak performances. This one, I am disappointed that that this one that Everything Goes On flopped. I wasn't surprised it missed the year-end list, even though it had a pretty high peak. But yeah, that's basically my discussion of the Dance year-end list. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this didn't drag on too long. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. It's Sermon checking out. I'll see you next time.